Good morning, good afternoon, and a very warm welcome, guys. Happy Wednesday. Hope you're all having a fantastic week so far. Before I say hello to everybody in the chat, let me say a big welcome to Salty Texas C and Zaxx. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the invite. I loved having you on my show, and I'm honored to be on yours, Purple. Thank you.
Oh, and as a member of your channel, I'm happy to be here.
I am so excited to get to chat to you guys. Had a wonderful time the other night getting to talk with you. It went by so quickly. You had a fantastic show last night as well. Congratulations. Absolutely loved it.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun, and I owe it all to Zaxx.
Oh. Yeah, thanks, buddy. Yeah, right. We're here for you, Salty, but it was so much fun, and Purple was there all night with us. It was great.
I know. Thank you so much.
And a lot of people in the chat were there as well. So let me say a warm good morning to everybody. We have got D-Bud Martin. Hello, love. We've got Snorter Peepers Cuba. Hello. We've got TZ Canadian. Good to see you. We have got Brandon, the anime guy. Good morning. Great to see you. Let's see. Keely Chow. Roll Tide Keely. And we've got Jaden Hamilton. Warm welcome to you. Great to see you. Let's see. Let me scroll up. We have also got Leia Rose. Hello, sweetheart. Good morning. And the lovely Gun Bunny. Good to see you as well. I know we've got Speak for the Dead. Good morning to you. Good to see you. We've got Psycho Dwarf 9. Good morning, Psycho Dwarf. A warm and hello, good afternoon to Archer Cullen. Great to see you as always. Nearsighted Cyclops. Good morning. Hey there. Good to see you. And Floral from Under a Rock, great to see you as always. Good morning. Let's see who else we have got. We've got Parrothead. Hey, he says hey along. Hello, Parrothead. Lord Duff, always good to see you. Makuba76, good morning to you as well. And the lovely Miss Martin Muses. Hello, sweetheart. And you didn't have to do this, but
yes, I did.
Huge thank you. We've got a new member, and it is my co-host for the day, Salty Texas C. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you so much.
My honor. My honor. You do such great stuff. Thank you.
Oh, you do as well. It's such a joy to get to kind of support each other, I think is the best way to do it. And I'm very, very grateful for everybody who has joined so far. Thank you so much. And just because I missed them last time we were on, let me say a massive thank you. We had a couple of member chats. We had one from SJ Almighty, who has been a member for 9 months, and he sent a whole row of emojis, so thank you for that. Really appreciate it. And we had one from Punk Waddle, who's been a member for 8 months, and he said, I've missed these chats too. Thanks, everybody. Well, thank you, Punk Waddle. Always a pleasure to see you in chat, so thank you. Huge thank you, guys. You are the best as always. So what I thought we would do today, it's a subject that I think is on a lot of people's minds at the moment, especially since it seems to be no matter what you're a fan of, you're being told things have to change, basically. You can no longer be the fan of whatever it is you loved, and it's not being kept the same. But let me ask you guys, what did you grow up loving? Were you fans of Star Trek? Were you Star Wars? Were you fans of comic books?
Salty, you go.
Okay. Yeah. Purple, it's a great question. And as I've mentioned, I tend to, I'm 52, so I am definitely firmly Gen X. And My fandoms were everything fantasy and science fiction equally. Yeah, obviously Star Wars, seeing the movie Star Wars, which wasn't A New Hope, it was Star Wars in the theater at 7. It blew my mind. And even now, watching that show, it looks better than I would say 90% of the science fiction we've gotten in the time since then. I loved Star Trek. One of my earliest memories was watching Star Trek on one of those big wooden console black and white TVs with my grandpa, who was sitting there with his pipe, and we were watching James T. Kirk and Spock and Leonard McCoy beaming down to strange planets and getting it on with hot chicks. And it was great. I loved all of those things. And like I mentioned on my stream last night, the Lord of the Rings, before I ever read the books, I watched the Bakshi movies, and they were fantastic. And there was a lot of other second tier sci-fi out there. Obviously, the original Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers in that show that was out for a while. I just was into everything nerddom and geekdom there was, and then of course played Dungeons and Dragons too.
Absolutely. How about you, Zaxx? What were you a fan of growing up?
I was never a big Star Trek guy, but I have watched it since, and it's great, but not at the time for me. It wasn't my thing. I loved Star Wars. That was sort of my initial fandom. I think I was maybe 6 years old, something like that, and my dad took me to a double feature of Star Wars and Empire back to back in the theater.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah, I had to rake the yard and stuff to get that done, but I got it done. So that was my introduction, and like after that, it was everything was about Star Wars, and then after later on, it became more about whatever the Saturday morning cartoons were actually really.
Yeah.
But not really like Star Trek. What I did come upon later, and then D&D when I was I think 9 or 10 years old. It was nonstop D&D, everything fantasy, and renting movies from the video store that was almost always the same Ralph Bakshi version of Hobbit, because it was mislabeled, so I always thought it might be a different one, but it was always the same one. Or I'm slow, so yeah.
Unless I got your hopes up that it was a different one, and damn it, I've seen this.
I really did, though. And we go to a different video store, and I think maybe this is a different Hobbit. No, same Hobbit.
Purple, you have such a cool chat. You have low spec Linux laptop, and he brought up Space 1999.
Yes.
I remember that. I remember watching that show. There was another one too from the 60s called Time Tunnel, which was kind of like Quantum Leap, only in a 60s kind of a way. It was super trippy. But yeah, there was so much good stuff out there, and there still is to go find.
I vaguely remember Time Tunnel in front of me. And Trinoculus says, Zaxx, was it a Motorola? My dad had a cabinet designer for them back in the day.
Oh, for the TV?
Mm-hmm.
I had a wooden cabinet TV too, but I don't remember what it was called. Sorry, no idea. It was when we have to go and
things, yeah.
You have to get up and go walk to the TV and turn the dial. One of those.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it went clunk, clunk, clunk whenever you were trying to change the channel. Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah.
Pod Racing Palpatine brings up Blake 7, and there's a lot of Blake 7 fans. Shockwave, great to see you, says old school Hoovy in here. First episode I ever saw was Origin of the Daleks. Nice.
I loved the original, well, in my opinion, the only Doctor Who. I got into it one day because here in the States, back then there were only 4 channels, and our public broadcasting system would show them where I lived at noon on Sundays. So after we got home from church, I ran to go turn on the TV, and there was this crazy guy with a long scarf and a blue box. and it was the coolest thing ever. And my love of that started, and I think it was 1982 when I was 12, and continued through Peter Davidson, which was a bit of a change. And then after that, when the BBC had funding problems, I kind of drifted away. I wasn't a huge fan of Sylvester McCoy, although I think he's a great doctor. And then, of course, I've loved all the way through Eccleston, Tennant, Matt Smith. And that's kind of where my fandom sort of ground to a halt after they started to change what the Doctor was. So
yes, I would agree with that. I think Capaldi could have been one of the greats had he been given better material to work with. I think he was done wrong, but I really do. Of all the fandoms, I feel Doctor Who has taken quite a bashing because they are so loyal. It's been around for so long, and the BBC, in their infinite wisdom, just absolutely discarded these lifelong fans in favour, as so many other IPs have done, in chasing these mythical new fans that they seem to be convinced that exist, but we've yet to see evidence of.
Well, it's crazy. If only Doctor Who had an international draw. If only If only Doctor Who appealed to all fans of different ages. I'm literally like, what kind of stupid pills do you have to take to do that to something as beautiful, brilliant, and incredibly profitable as Doctor Who was before they did what they did?
It really was. It was their, I think it's safe to say, their flagship sci-fi show, and they just sunk it. Now, I don't think the Doctor Who is completely dead, but I think if they gave it a rest for probably 5 years and then brought it back with lots of fanfare and an apology, I think wouldn't go amiss. I think they could definitely bring it back, but they seem determined to destroy it.
Imagine having a show where every generation can have their own Doctor. Right?
I know.
Yes, exactly.
We should make a show like that.
We should copyright that idea. I think you should trademark that.
Yeah. Instead of a blue box, we'll just put them in a red rectangle, and there you go. And we'll call it Nurse What, not Doctor Who. It's Nurse What, and I bet you we'd get away with it. So.
It'll be better too.
That's probably
yeah.
Oh my God! I think J.J. Abrams just stole that and is getting it bankrolled.
Oh no!
I should have never said that.
Well, what do you say? If you put it on the internet, it's going to be stolen by somebody.
I should have called shotgun on that idea.
One of the things that we were talking about in the green room before we went live was this idea that being a bit of a nerd, being a little bit of a geek, especially when you were younger, was not something that was particularly cool. And we were talking about how we kind of blamed Big Bang Theory for the rise of the, in quotations, normie fan. Do you think that that's been kind of detrimental, or do you think that it's opened up a lot of doors for people?
Zaxx, I'll let you go first on that one.
It could have been the opening doors, but it wasn't. I think it's been detrimental, and people think they're geeks and they're not. And for me, it was a thing where there was a price to be paid to be a dork. And so I paid that price when I was a kid, and so did everyone else who was in those fandoms. So all the guys I played D&D with, we did not talk about D&D at school. There was hand signals involved and things like that to talk about our games, and so people would know what we're talking about. And that was something we had to learn to do. And so you had to love it to publicly love it. You had to actually love it, or else you wouldn't make it public. And now people just say they love something even if they don't, because they think it sounds cool.
Yeah.
And was this back in the 80s as well, when there was I think it was the Satanic Panic, where people were saying how terrible Dungeons and Dragons was and what a terrible effect it had on kids.
Yeah. No, I have direct experience with that. I came from a very religious family. My dad was a pastor, and I bought all of my Dungeons and Dragons, modules, my books, my player's handbook, the monster manual, all of the lead figures. And then of course you have to buy all the cool dice. And I came home one day and all of it had been thrown away because my mom and dad sat me down at the kitchen table. No. It's a true story. And not only that, but every fantasy and science fiction book I had, because they were convinced that Satan was coming into our house because of my Gary Gygax TSR monster manual, because it had a picture of a demon on the front of it. That happened. It's a true story.
And the Shockwave brings up one that I do definitely remember, the chick tracks for Dark Dungeons. I'm pretty sure somebody shoved that into my hand at one point. I remember them well. Yes.
I blame Barbara Walters for that.
I agree. And Tipper Gore.
Your book's taken, yeah.
Yeah, Tipper Gore. Well, you always have to create the straw man argument to distract from what's really going on, And it's not like that's not happening today with our fandoms.
What do you mean?
Never mind. Honk honk. Yeah, I agree. Oh, did that slip out? I'm sorry. Yeah.
But quickly, I can add to that, because the guys I was friends with as a kid playing D&D at 9 and 10 years old, they're the people I'm still friends with today and still playing games with, because we have that bond, right?
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, I remember it was on the playground in the 3rd grade, and I think it was, good Lord, 1980 or 1981, when this kind of chunky, dopey looking guy with a bad haircut walked up to me holding a backpack and unzipped it and said, "Check this out." And I was like, "Oh, what is it going to be? Penthouse, Playboy?" It's like, no, it was the Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition. In some of the 1st edition books, and that was better than pornography. It was a way to escape. It was a way to the world didn't make sense, when you're 11 or 12, you're going through that crazy time, and to be able to sit there and then get graph paper and create dungeons and make characters that are heroic and strong and can battle monsters, and there was nothing like it. And yeah, it meant the world to me for most of my teenage years. And I played sports, and I was also on the debate team and did all those other things, but I always loved Dungeons and Dragons, always.
I have a quick story I can add to that, which is pretty funny.
Please do, yeah.
I let Lord Thaw's comment about being a hockey player. At school, I'm in Canada, we would go and play at recess or D&D at recess in the neighboring hockey rink because it was closed during the summer. And so we go play in like the penalty box. And then over time, porn started showing up in the penalty box. But it wasn't normal, quote unquote, normal porn. It was women with penises porn that kept being left in the penalty box. And at the time, I didn't get why it kept showing up there, but it must have been for us, right? Like they knew we were there every day. So over time, it would show up. It was ridiculous. I was very confused.
What are you trying to say, guys?
Yeah, what is this? Is there a guy watching us? I didn't think at the time, but I guess there must have been.
That's why I love having Zaxx on the show. You just never know where things are gonna go. Yeah.
That's right.
I love that.
Okay.
Oh Lord. Yeah. No, but there was a. Go ahead, Purple.
Guys, please carry on. I can't.
Okay. All right, I'll let you catch your breath and stop googling penis porn. But yeah, it's
as a kid in the 80s, you had no idea what that was.
No, you didn't. No, it was a simpler time. Our women didn't have those things. But yeah, no, it's at least not the porn I was looking at. No, it's God. Now I lost my train. No, Lord Thoth brought up the hiding your fandom and hiding your nerddom, and that was a real thing. I wore it openly. I mean, I did wear a trench coat from the Goodwill, and I did have my grandmother crochet me a authentic colored Doctor Who scarf, and I would wear that in middle school. Now you can imagine how popular somebody would be who would do that. In the 80s, when everybody else has got popped collars, they've got swatches, everybody's carrying their Duran Trapper Keeper. That's what it was, man. Like every John Hughes movie with the socioeconomic nerddom, jockdom, all that was real where I was, and I, despite being good at football and other sports, I never gave that stuff up, and it resulted in a lot of physical altercations that I didn't start with guys who were athletes, because they're like, "Why are you doing this? Yeah, you're making us look bad." And what the hell do you I'm carrying my little Crown Royal bag around of dice and stuff like that. And
we were talking about that as well, weren't we? We were saying that, although we can't really condone bullying, it's something that you don't see that often anymore. It was kind of something that everybody went through, and it made you stronger because of it.
Well, we all have
really
our hero's journey. Yeah, go ahead, Zaxx.
No, it did. I think obviously it can be bad, but it was also a good thing for a lot of people, really. Except for the having to hide your D&D stuff part, but yeah, I mean, it's really it's also a bit of gatekeeping, because you might get picked on, or you risk that if you want to do this. So you better really want to do this.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I think it shows the depth of being a fan if you're willing to be beaten up. To show whatever it is you love, be it comic books, be it D&D, be it Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever it is. And I think we were saying also, if it's something that you can be swayed from loving by other people just because they look down on you, how big a fan were you? I think that's what it circles around to at the moment. You were saying, Zaxx and Salty, there's a lot of fake fans. There's a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon that we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, what's crazy is I'm seeing Wheel of Time. You can always tell when a marketing machine is spinning up, and Wheel of Time went radio silent. I did a lot of videos on that. That's what brought me back to YouTube, and I got fired up about it because I love Robert Jordan's works. I do. Now, I'm not a Robert Jordan scholar. I just love his work just the same way that I love Terry Brooks and the Sword and Elfstones of Shannara. All those works, and the Dragonlance Chronicles by Weiss and Hickman. But to watch what they did on Amazon, and then to see this coordinated marketing effort to recreate the history of what these characters were and attack people for going, that's not what it is. That absolutely, and I called it back in November, not that I'm a genius, but it was pretty obvious. This was all a testing ground for how to handle the backlash for the Lord of the Rings of Power. And I mean, that being said, I've never seen a more catastrophically failing way to market a new show in my life.
It kind of warms your heart, doesn't it?
It does.
Just quickly, let me say a massive thank you to Mexican Iron Man. Good morning, Poppy. Good to see you. He sends us a 1999 super sticker, and it's peach, and it says, "You are amazing." Well, you're amazing too. Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. But you are absolutely right, and as you say, I think a lot of people kind of saw the writing on the wall with a lot of the other IPs, but it's really become much more blatant now with the Lord of the Rings, especially with the pushback, not from super fans, real super fans, not these fake influencer fans, which was hilarious.
Yeah, those were not fans at all.
No.
But even people that generally, they just either they haven't read the books or they read the books when they were little, but they remember the films. There's been so much pushback against Amazon, and it's actually quite heartening to see, to be honest.
I think they found those super fans on chat roulette. That's my guess.
Yeah. Well, they're agents, It's I think it's the same agent that handles Frosk probably handles them. They seem to have that look.
Oh God. I remember I played high level soccer as a kid, and so there was one time when I lost my dice bag on the soccer field, and having to explain that to my teammates, what those aren't dice, is what they would say. Just don't worry about it. Just like, I don't want to explain it, but but that's what you'd go through. Like you had to either explain it or try to avoid explaining it to everyone, and now everyone knows. And different deal now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my parents thought that I kept drugs in that, and they're like, I wish I was making up stories about this, but it's true. I mean, like, it's like, where did you get that Crown Royal bag? Are you drinking? It's like, I'm 11 years old, and it's like, I got it, like somebody's brother had it, and I saw that, it's just like, it's cool, like it's purple, it's got like gold, it's just, it looks cool. And my parents are like, oh, the devil's coming into the house through your drug-filled Crown Royal bag of 20-sided dice. It's like, you can't make this up. You can't make this
salty.
Up.
There was a time that when you might have thought, you know what? Yes, I'm drinking. That's the better answer.
Well,
it's alcohol, Mom.
That started when I was 13. Let's be honest. But that was probably because of my parents, not because of the Dungeons and Dragons.
And just a big thank you to SJ Almighty. Good morning or good afternoon, Ravi sends us a £5 super sticker, and it is a Shiba Inu, and it says number 1. Thank you, sweetheart. Good to see you as always. Oh my gosh. I love the idea of you. You know what? Yeah, it's drugs. It's not dice at all. Yeah, we're just going to go with that.
Yes, guys, I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah, that did start, but again, that was when I was 13. I mean, come on. This was rural America in the 80s. I mean, come on. It was a different time. You learned how to work on cars. You listened to a lot of Bryan Adams. You used gel, and you started drinking in alleys when you were 12 or 13, and it all worked itself out. I turned out fine.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's right.
And you still love D&D. So yes.
Oh yeah. And it wasn't just D&D. TSR put out some really other great games, and one of them was called Gamma World. And of course, growing up in the 80s, the threat of nuclear war. Every day you woke up and it wasn't a smoking radioactive crater because of, fighting the Soviet Union, you were glad. But they actually, TSR, Gary Gygax, made a post-apocalyptic role-playing game called Gamma World, and it was super trippy. Didn't make any sense. You could be like a chicken turtle man with, levitation powers. It was crazy. But that was another game we used to play all the time. And there was another one, I think it was Star Forces, Star Battles. Just and all these game boxes had the most beautiful, like Franzetti like art on them. They were just so much fun. So yeah.
That is awesome. The one thing that I did want to bring up, because you've got a fantastic video that I'm going to share in just a minute as well, and we've got a couple of articles that I would like to go over, but the first thing that I wanted to talk about is I found a article. Now this is a little bit back in the past. I think it's from 2019, and this is from Vox. So I'm not going to read the entire thing, but I'm just going to pick out a couple of snippets from it. So they are talking about how a fandom went from mainstream in 2010s for better and for worse. So they say at the start of the decade, fandom wasn't a word most people knew, much less fully understood, though the word has been around since the early 1900s. For most of the last 100 years or so, it's been mainly known to people who considered themselves to be in whatever fandom that they loved. It's a relatively niche number of people who self-identified as being part of a community of fans. And I think right up until, at that point, I would agree with that. It was very, either you were a fan of something and you hung around with people who were like-minded, or you didn't. You kind of gravitated towards people that loved the same things that you loved.
Yeah. And I don't ever remember a time where people were coming into what you loved and taking it over and saying, you know what I need to do? I need to take all of my politics and all of my thinking and impose it upon something that is existed and harmed no one. But I need to find boogeymen within it. I need to do this. I need to find all of the things that I could possibly misunderstand and misconstrue and run with like I am mentally ill, and then to call you an istinophobe for loving something, even though you never hurt anybody. You were just having fun and, doing your thing. And now today it's almost like a full-time job. Like people seem to have learned how to do this, and now they're applying it to everything that we care about. And I mean, you could name anything. You could name the most innocuous thing ever, like Care Bears. And I bet you somebody is going to end up saying Care Bears is istophobic. It's this phobic. It's
problematic. Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, you know what? Why don't you work at a soup kitchen? Why don't you go, work at a shelter, work with abused animals, do something that actually matters or is something. And I
help the world.
Help the world. And the thing was, again, because I'm old, I used to say this same thing 30 years ago when I was dealing with the origins of this in college in the PC culture. And it's just nuts. I say it all the time. It is absolutely insane to watch all of this crazy, dark, malevolent, malicious, deliberate misunderstanding and deconstruction happening on such a scale,
I think that what's happened is on a global scale, a much larger scale, is it's when a girl wants to play D&D with you. Back in the day, you were so excited that you would do whatever it takes to get her to like the game. Even if that includes changing the rules. And this is that on a much larger scale, not gendered, but the cool kids want to play with you. And so you're like, sweet, yeah, we'll do whatever you want. Play with us. And then they take it over and ruin it.
Yes, it's that whole mentality of this is ours now, and if you don't like it, then you have to leave. But we were here first.
Yeah, that's right. What? Those are my dice.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember when we had a couple girls come over and play with us, and it was a big deal. Like I remember, I was, we'll say, of a lower socioeconomic scale. And so we were over at a buddy's house whose dad worked the third shift at the mill. And so, of course, he's like, we had to clean the whole house. So we were scrubbing the toilets. We were washing the dishes. We went out and got like Tombstone pizzas. We got a couple 2 liters of Mountain Dew. You know, we're burning scented candles because girls are coming to play Dungeons and Dragons at my buddy Mike's house, you know, and it's like, and they showed up and then they looked through the books and they're like, this is stupid. We're going to go to the mall. And we ended up playing Dungeons and Dragons by ourselves. But, you know, so
Yep.
I don't know. It's
Gatekeeping is important, I think.
It is, yeah. I was always against gatekeeping. I thought, you know, if there's room for everybody in whatever fandom that you love, but now having seen what's happened across the board, and it's like you say, there's no escapism anymore. Doesn't matter what you're a fan of. I'm fully there for gatekeeping if it means something that I love remains protected. Absolutely.
Yeah. I played a clip. I'm not self-promoting, but I did play a clip, and it's out there, of Christopher Tolkien talking about the way his dad, J.R.R. Tolkien, looked at escapism. And I don't know if you were still on the show when I played that, Purple, but he said people who are critical in this academic elite way of books that are fantasy, that are escapism, they conflate it with people deserting reality, that we're somehow not being where we should be, and we're, you know, how dare we leave this, you know, like reality that we're in and go lose ourselves in a book. And what Tolkien said is, instead of looking at people who are immersing themselves in fantasy or science fiction or the books that we love in our fandoms to escape, it's we're not deserting reality, we're escaping it like a prisoner in a POW camp, in that we bestow heroism and self-determination on those who escape from prisons that they're unjustly confined in. And I think that while that may seem a little extreme, I don't know, the last couple of years, my fandoms have helped me keep it together and find hope, you know?
I would absolutely agree with that. And I think it's the fandom, and also it's being able to do things like this, you know, being able to talk to people of like minds who, you know, love the same things that we love from across the world. You know, how lucky are we to be able to do this? But like you say, there is also the negative side that has come in, and what people really want from whatever it is they love is a way to escape. You know, we are so sick of having modern day politics, modern day sensibilities pushed into whatever it is that we love, be it, you know, film, comic books, games, computer games, whatever it is. We just want that little bit of break from reality.
Yeah. And it goes back to sitting around a campfire after a hard day of hunting mammoths. The Neanderthals weren't sitting there talking about, you know, Ugg is you know, conservative, and Bar, you know, Boonra is progressive, and we need to fight about this while we're chomping on our undercooked, you know, like a mammoth. They wanted to be entertained, and, you know, whether it was cave drawings or singing or drums, it was a way of escape and also of being entertained. And here we are now in the 22nd century, and we need that just as much as the people who sat around a campfire, you know, under the woods, listening to the wolves howl, you know?
I couldn't agree more with that. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. You know, it's what brings people together at the end of the day. It's what makes us human, I think. I think also we're kind of getting away from that. You know, there's so much division at the moment, and a lot of it, as we've seen with Lord of the Rings, as we've seen with Star Wars, it's all coming from external forces. It's not even coming from within fandom anymore. Whereas,
Agreed.
you know, with something I would say like the MCU, for example, or the DC fans, they have a tendency to kind of fight within themselves and, you know, try to one up each other. But it's all kind of camaraderie. But now it's coming from corporations. You know, it's being pushed that way.
It's funny you just talked about the Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. When I was in the green room before we started, there was so much I put together for the show last night we didn't get to, and I wanted to show it. Purple is gracious enough to potentially show it. Yes. And it's you talked about those forces, and, you know, we don't want to create a boogeyman, but at the same time, if the shoe fits, you know, bad robot, bad reboot, as Nerdrotic calls them. in all of the acolytes that have been around and rotating around that, you know, abyss, that maw of deconstruction and mystery box bullshit, they see the ramifications of all of those hires. We're seeing them across multiple fandoms, man. Like whether it's obviously Kurtzman with Star Trek, Star Wars. Look at what the hell they call Star Wars on Marvel Disney Plus, you know. And now they've come for my Lord of the Rings, man. And that teaser trailer, it's just baffling to me.
It's a hell of a thing. Would you mind if we shared that video that you kindly showed? Lovely. You're in control of this one, so if you want to pause or adjust the volume, please do. Let me just add it to the stream, and we'll show people what we're talking about.
What else is out there? There's wonders in this world beyond our wandering. There are stories about what happened.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Let me just pause that right there. Was that the exact moment where you thought, this seems really familiar?
You know, the exact moment, honestly, was back right here, where you could hear the rising. You heard what sounded like TIE fighters. Like, listen for it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And I'm like, I woke up in the middle of the night because I'm like, you know, my dog was like itching or something, and I was like, oh my God, it's the Force Awakens with hobbits. That's what the hell they did. And I'm like, am I crazy? And it's like, no, I'm not. And it's like, and then the same music where it's Rey talking about Middle Earth. That's what it is. Like,
what else is out there?
Yeah. Hashtag not actually hobbits.
There's wonders in this world beyond our wandering.
Even the music, even I didn't adjust the speed. I didn't screw around with that at all. All I did was sync up when that rising noise started from Lord of the Rings and match it into when you've got Poe being tortured by Raylo, Kalo, whatever the hell.
Yep.
Kylo,
that's it. Yeah.
Kylo Ren. Boy, what a memorable character he was.
So guys in the chat, if just so you know, this is the kind of stuff we don't get to on our Tuesday show. So
yeah.
there's a lot going on there.
I woke up this morning and I'm like, I'm gonna make purple show. I want to show this, but it's crazy, and it's like it's so right in front of us, and it's like they're so creatively bankrupt. They're just recycling the same cut and paste crap for all of these shows, and that to me is like, you know, Payne and McKay, who again did not have a lengthy resume before they were given a $1 billion 100-year-old franchise. They're just taking what Daddy Jar Jar did, and they're just like, look what we did, you know?
Yes, and that was one of the arguments for the Disney Star Wars. Once people had kind of got down off the nostalgia high, it was all this is actually really familiar.
Yeah, one more time, just because, and then I'll stop. I want you guys to like, I didn't do anything to this video. I just clipped it based upon, you know, the beats that were going on in the music, and it's crazy.
What else is out there? There's wonders in this world beyond our wandering. There are stories about what happened.
It's true.
Unbelievable.
Insane.
Yeah.
It's not even a conspiracy theory. It's just like that took me like 1 minute to clip the videos together, and I was like,
and it just syncs up.
Yeah, it's an algorithm. I don't even know what it is, but it's I don't know, it's just crazy to me. So yeah, thanks for letting me
Oh, thank you for sharing that. When you showed it in the green room, I thought this is insane. We've got to show this to the chat. So thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure.
It should be fake, but it's not.
It's not exactly. Just quickly before we jump into the next topic, let me just say a massive thank you, because we've had some more super stickers and super chats come in. We had a member chat as well from that 70s rock fan who has been with us for 10 months as a berserker. Thank you, love. He says, what a sexy panel. I agree.
I'll take it.
We do. We have got a super sticker from John Beck. Thank you, sweetheart. I really appreciate that. Let me scroll up and let me see what it was, because it skipped on me as usual. It was a hippo, and it says hype. Thank you, honey. I really appreciate that. We've got a super chat from I'm going to butcher your name. I'm so sorry.
Corey, you got this.
Oh, hold on. I'm trying to respond. Oh, this is the Thad that shouldn't be, and this guy.
The Thad that shouldn't be. Thank you. Thank you so much.
He's our resident lore expert for Tolkien on the Tuesday night show. Yep.
I was trying to figure it out phonetically. The Thad that shouldn't be. Thank you so much, sweetheart. I really appreciate that. He said, if you want something cool, there are a bunch of videos on YouTube of Tolkien reading from his own works. We'll do a summary video with links later. Nice. Looking forward to that. So, guys, if you're not subscribed, please do subscribe. And a big thank you as well to Trinoculus P, who sends us a $10 super chat. It says, classic conditioning, time for a crescendo, and for you to get excited, not emotional manipulation at all. Absolutely.
Yeah. Psychology 101.
Exactly. That's crazy. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, you have a great chat. This is so much fun. Thank you for inviting me this morning. This is wonderful.
We have an amazing chat, and you guys do. I've noticed a lot of friends and a lot of crossover, so it is great to see everybody. And the other thing that I wanted to bring in, because funnily enough, I think it was one of the things that you wanted to talk about yesterday as well, guys, that you didn't quite get to. So let's bring this one in as well. So this one is from Den of Geek. Now, usually I don't use Den of Geek because I find them, but I think it's worth covering today. So let's see what they've got to say. Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power. Can I just note that I still hate that title? I think it's really clunky. And
it's dumb. It's just dumb.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Why fandom has to embrace change? Oh, God.
Because the creatives are hacks and they don't have any talent, and the people funding these projects have an agenda to push. Oops, did I say that out loud? Okay.
You make it sound like there's a message that they're trying to push again and again and again. Yeah. It would be different if it would be different. You know, it's only one franchise. It's only one franchise where we're seeing changes and all the masculine, strong characters being deconstructed and all of the women turned into, petulant 14-year-old boys, and the hero's journey being destroyed. And it's just one. It's not like it's every franchise, right? I mean, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't happen everywhere.
People have got some kind words to say about Den of Geek. I'm absolutely agreeing with you.
Fair.
Not all getting true. any arguments from this panel, I promise.
It's like ING with like 1% of a soul. Let's be honest about it.
It but let's give them the benefit of the doubt, because we are fair people. Let's see what they've got to say. So, intransient and reactionary fandom is nothing new, but some responses to the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power trailer, show how damaged culture has become. That sounds very sinister, doesn't it?
I was gonna say, somebody, it's this is I never wanted to audit the current gender studies courses at a graduate level. So I'm really glad they're making me want to read this article by saying that kind of crazy ass third wave feminist stuff. It's great.
Exactly. It's not hyperbolic at all, or, it's not knee jerk by any means. Yeah. So they said, in response to the trailer for Amazon's new Lord of the Rings series, lucky if you're going to get more than one season, there has been a negative reaction based on the fact that not everybody in the series is a white man. We're one sentence in. Would you like to respond?
Here, hold this straw man for me.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'm waiting for Dorothy and the Tin Man to come along to join that straw man scarecrow, because this is bullshit. This is oh my God. It's like, get on your meds, go do something else. Leave my Lord of the Rings alone.
It is, and I love it. First sentence in, and they've already covered sexism and racism. Thank you, Denner Geek. You're the gift that keeps on giving.
Well, it's
very covered is a kind word.
Yeah, they're very economical with their straw man building. They're just like, look, just so you know, out of the gate, you're an istinophobe, and the problem is you who have loved this your entire life.
Exactly. You know? What the hell is wrong with you, you bigots?
That's right. Like this garbage, you bigot.
Consume.
Yes.
Let's see what else they've got to say. Sure, there have been other negative reactions too, but they've been trampled by review bombing rage.
Oh my God.
The review bombing. Russian bots.
Well, you know that my better half works in marketing and feedback for Fortune 100 corporations. So, one could look at this and say, well, this is the customer of your product who's telling you that when they buy a car, they actually want the wheels to work. They want to be able to see through the windshield. And when they step on the brakes, that it works, because that's what a car is supposed to be. And I think we're seeing that with the Lord of the Rings. We know what the Lord of the Rings should have. We know what it should look like, and we know what it should sound like. And that's not what we're getting. That's not review bombing. That's saying we don't want to buy your crappy product.
Exactly.
And there was an opposite movement in place for Wheel of Time because it was shitty. And so what happened is they tried to, the super fans, quote unquote, of Wheel of Time tried to organize a reverse, I guess, review bomb campaign where they would put 5-star reviews no matter what.
Oh God, yeah.
And so I would debate those guys because, like, is it possible this show just sucks? And people are not bombing anything, they just don't like it. And they couldn't handle that idea. It had to be fake reviews.
I got bombed on some of when I first started to do Wheel of Time videos, it was crazy to see the amount of, and I've talked about it on other shows, the amount of what it sounded like people directly from Amazon coming in and using terms that people in the film industry or the television production industry would use to defend a series. And I'm like, yeah, you're really not talking about the books. You're talking about your production and trying to sell me on something which has nothing to do with the story and more to do with your production quality and how something costs, why things, cost what they did. And I'm like, that's just, it's all crazy. The amount of coordinated spin for the Wheel of Time. And I don't think Wheel of Time has nearly the fandom, obviously, as Tolkien does, but it was the same thing there. And now again, we're watching it blow up on a 1,000-fold scale with the Lord of the Rings.
Yes, and it is curious to see what excuses that they've kind of come up with. Everything from review bombing to they've trotted out the sexism. They've trotted out this idea that fans were openly homophobic towards Ian McKellen 20 years ago when he played Gandalf.
I hate that argument.
Yeah, me too.
One dude in a small chat room, somebody did a screen clip. I mean, I'm pretty sure back then it was still dial-up. You guys remember that 44.1K?
AOL, yeah.
I didn't. Yep. I was, what was I back at? I was 30 in 2000. And I don't remember anybody.
No.
Anybody talking about Ian McKellen being gay. We didn't know he was gay, and we didn't care he was gay.
We didn't care, exactly.
We were just excited that he looked a hell of a lot like Gandalf, and that was it.
Yes, agreed.
Absolutely. Let's see what else they've got to say. So they've already brought out sexism, racism, review bombing. Let's see. In particular, a lot of people have been posting a quote attributed to Tolkien to highlight their disgust. Evil is not able to create anything new. It can only distort and destroy what has been invented or make good or made by the forces of good. And this I love, which frankly colossally lacking in self-awareness.
Wow. Oh, the irony. Oh, the irony to that statement.
I do love, though, that they gave us instructions. Like, if you don't like this, here's what you should say. Thanks, Den of Geek.
Thank you, Den of Geek. Appreciate that. Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. Not all of your readers have a 2-digit IQ, but okay.
Yeah. It's the hive mind, and you can see it, and it's just bizarre. It's just absolutely bizarre.
It is. Let's see. So, The Rings of Power is an adaptation, loosely, of the work, the written word, to a visual medium made in the third decade of the 21st century. That's a really, really terrible sentence. It's not going to match the books written in the middle of the 20th century in the same way as Peter Jackson's films do not match the books. Now, you showed on your show last week a brilliant clip about Peter Jackson talking about that very thing, didn't you?
Yeah, it's I don't have that one pulled up. I can find it, but it was talking about, first of all, we've all seen the clip where he's saying Peter Jackson was saying, we're not here to tell our story, we're here to tell Tolkien's story. Part of that same interview with Charlie Rose was him saying, we deliberately wanted to find people when we cast them to bring the characters in the book to life, not to change to meet the person we were casting or anything else, but just to bring Tolkien to life. And to me, looking at what they're doing with the Rings of Power, it seems like they are reaching in every possible way to make sure that whatever their narrative or agenda items are, they're bending over backwards to pull quotes out of context from the appendices to rationalize things like Gladriel being a warrior and a commander and all that stuff.
Agreed. Would you like me to share this clip that you've got here? Is this the Tolkien Scholar clip?
Yes, this is, yes. And the reason why I wanted to pull, and we don't have to show it.
I think he's profoundly English.
Let me
go ahead
that now because it comes up really a little bit loud.
Sorry about that.
So this is a actual Tolkien scholar talking about him, isn't it? If I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah. This was a Tolkien scholar, PhD, University of Maryland, and this is from a Tolkien documentary that came out in 1992.
Nice. Let's see what she has to say.
I think he's profoundly English and very deeply rooted in a particular time in his countries and in Western European history, a sort of between the wars period, which I think his work very much reflects, although it is not an allegory of it.
And we talked about that the other day, didn't we, if I remember correctly, about how his experiences during the war shaped how he wrote, how he saw brotherhood, how he saw camaraderie, and how he seemed to want to get back to a simpler time. He didn't like the way that the world was heading, it seemed, which is why he wrote the Lord of the Rings, why he wrote The Hobbit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that documentary, which I recommend you all go find, I can pull up the link and it's actually streaming on YouTube. It's fascinating because one thing that is in there is a very young Tom Shippey. And it's great to see him. It's crazy to see him, 30 years younger and so full of passion and like appreciation of Tolkien's works. It's a great documentary.
Awesome. Let's just finish this little clip as well, see what she has to say.
But any great work is going to exceed its national boundaries without betraying its own cultural heritage. And I think The Lord of the Rings does become international partly.
And we've talked about that as well, just because it is supposedly a mythology for English people. It has always been accessible to everybody else. You don't have to see yourself in Lord of the Rings to appreciate the work. And that's the one thing that we've seen time and time again. And it's this idea that you can't relate to anything if it doesn't represent you exactly.
Yeah. And at the time this documentary was created in the early 90s, the Tolkien's books had sold millions and millions of copies. It was translated into 28 languages at that time, and obviously since in the last 30 years it's sold even more books, and I think it's almost in 60 different languages now all around the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think what's so insulting about what they're doing with him is that he put years of his life into building a world that was believable and consistent, and that they could have pulled from any part of that world to tell whatever story they wanted to tell, as long as it was built in that same world and that it made sense. And instead of doing that, they're doing what they're doing, which is just the lazy race swapping really is what they're doing to get representation. But I would watch a show about the Haradrim, and I may not pronounce that properly, but I know what it is. I want to see that show. You can have nothing but representation. I will watch it. Please do that. But don't change his world.
Yeah, in the chat on it as always. We've got this great comment as well. I cannot relate to somebody who doesn't look like me. If you don't accommodate my mental illness and prejudice, then you're a racist. It's absolute pure projection. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that whole thing with the influencer reaction, it's literally, I mean, it fits the pathology of malignant narcissism. It does, you know, and it has to be me, and I'm so excited that I saw me. And it's like, you know, the world existed before you were born. And everybody who existed before you were born was not a racist or a bigot or whatever. They lived in a different time, you know?
It's narcissism off the charts. That's what that is.
It is, absolutely. And I agree with Pod Racing Palpatine. He says, why are they searching for themselves in these stories? You know, where did this shift come from? Whereas before, you know, you picked up a book, whether it was fantasy or sci-fi or horror, and you could just enjoy the work for what it was. Why is this now? Do people, it seems to be of a younger generation, you know, it's the up-and-coming generation. They absolutely, they can't relate to anything unless they see themselves in whatever it is they're either watching, playing, reading. It's highly bizarre. And I'm just wondering where it came from.
You know, Jaden Hamilton is in your chat. Hail to you, Jaden. He's always on my live streams. I think he's 17 years old, and we've been turning him on to a bunch of different older shows. And I think there's value in reaching out to people. And I'm Jaden, if you're on Twitter, hit me up. To talk to them and say, what is your experience of this and how do you perceive it? Because Purple, I agree with you. There seems to be this demarcation of a different type of experiencing of life and of emotion and interaction with the physical world. And, you know, we can all blame the internet for that. In maybe that's overused, but I do think there's a certain element of that where temporally, those of us who are a little older, we had to exist in a world where, you know, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the internet. Our perception of time and of making things and work, in my opinion, is very different than what we're seeing portrayed right now. And I think that's part of why these stories that we love, they've taken the hero's journey away. They've skipped the part where you have to overcome obstacles and you have to grow, and you as a person, struggle. Yes. You as a person have to change to become better. And instead we've got, you know, Rey Skywalker, you know, we've got the Wheel of Time, and, you know, now we're getting, you know, war goddess, you know, barbarian Gladriel. And it's like, that's not a story, that's propaganda, in my opinion.
And wait for her side shave haircut. It's gonna be great.
Well, true. Yeah. Elron. Yeah, it's Harry Styles. I'm waiting for Elron to wear a dress. Yeah.
Yes, I've noticed that Gladriel's husband hasn't been mentioned in any of the trailers, in any of the marketing yet, which I think is highly curious.
Well, you know, Gladriel's boyfriend. Yeah, Gladriel's husband's boyfriend was probably keeping her busy in this adaptation.
Okay, I have a quick example of what's happening and how it's ruined stories, and that's on The Witcher season 2. The showrunner tried to represent everyone, and so she did that, and so there's black witchers, every different colored witchers, whatever, and then she was getting attacked online because she killed one of the black witchers. So not only can you have to have representation, but you can only do with them things that I tell you can do with them. So it's no longer your story at all. It's ridiculous.
So you can use whatever race or you like, but they've got to be the hero. Yes.
Nothing bad can happen to them. They have to be good.
They can only be good. They can only be the hero. They must succeed. How belittling is that to minorities? You know.
Equity.
Yeah.
Well, we won't go down that road.
No, that's a whole other topic for another day. But let me just say a quick thank you and with gratitude to the third that shouldn't be. Thank you, honey. He says, even with the highly limited license they have, Amazon, I love that, could have done so much that was cool and interesting, but instead they choose to destroy. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think people
Yeah.
forgetting just how little they actually have to work with. You know, it makes you wonder why they actually bothered getting the license in the first place. They could have created this fantasy world, something completely original, and people wouldn't be up in arms about it. We wouldn't care. But because it is another IP that people love that has been taken over, this is where you're seeing the pushback from.
Well, and they're calling it Lord of the Rings, sort of, but it looks like a cross between the movie Hook and Narnia.
Agreed.
With a bit of YA tossed in. That's what it
And
looks like to me.
I liked Narnia, don't get me wrong. I thought
I do too.
The first one was great, but
It's true though. I mean, in Zaxx, you hit on something. I did a video a couple of weeks ago talking about the turnover in this production. And part of the turnover was they got rid of the art directors. The original art director, they brought in Zaxx, the art director who did Narnia. So your observations are spot on. That's why the Rings of Power looks the way that it does.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. Well, it's bad, but yeah,
I know.
Yes, it is.
Awesome that I was right about something.
Well, true. I mean, there's a first time for everything. Come on.
Right.
Let's just finish this last little bit of the clip and see what she has to say.
By virtue of the fact that it is so very English.
Oh, there she goes. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, in the the context of that was, the reason why it has an international appeal and why people loved it was because it was English. It was English mythology, and we've talked about that, Purple, and other channels have too. This was Tolkien writing for England, and it's an English story, and maybe it should look like England.
Yeah, just saying. Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having something that represents a particular country. I would not be so arrogant as to go to a different country with a established mythology and say you must change this because I can't see myself represented in it. How ridiculous is that?
And Purple, I pulled up that clip that you wanted from Peter Jackson if you wanted to talk about it for casting.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me add this to the stream. Thank you.
Casting for The Lord of the Rings was vital because it's one of the most beloved books of all time. And everybody that reads that book has a mental image of these people in their minds.
That sounds really racist. That's all I'm going to say.
That sounds problematic to me. I'm sorry, Peter. But that's why these films were so beloved. Peter Jackson was so incredibly nervous about doing these films because he didn't want to mess it up. He knew how much pressure was going to be on him because of how beloved these books are. And thank goodness, he was so diligent in casting, in where it was filmed, the way it was filmed, the choreography, the costuming, everything.
The weapons, the armor, the attention to detail is astonishing, and that's why, and we talk about it all the time, why those of us who love what he did own multiple versions of the same movie in the theatrical releases, the extended releases. We watch the making of this, and it's because someone took the time to honor a great writer in the source material.
Agreed, absolutely. And just let me say good morning. We've got a couple more people have joined us. We've got Gap Stargate, good to see you. We've got Mackany Draws. Hello, sweetheart. Good morning to you guys. Good morning to everybody in Cam. I saw you as well. Good to see you. We've got another brilliant super chat comment that has come in from the third that shouldn't be. Thank you so much. It says, I'm trying to remain calm, but day by day my rage grows. This Amazon series is an attack on something that I truly love, that has helped save me when I was young. I could not agree more. Yeah.
Yeah, the Thad that shouldn't be shared some of that experience on our show. I think it was 2 weeks ago, and it was a way for him to cope with a very difficult situation as a child. And I have some experience with that. That's why I went to fantasy, was to escape the real world, or as Christopher Tolkien called it, the primary world, which, because of my socioeconomic situation and all the things that go along with that, it wasn't so great, And what you wanted to find were things that inspired you, and that hero's journey and overcoming obstacles and being a good person, and what is right and what is wrong, and that their things are very black and white, and there is good and there is evil. And that's one of the most difficult things, I think, with what we're seeing. And it's not just Tolkien, but Star Wars, whatever Disney's putting out that has Star Wars on it, and Marvel. Suddenly we have to be sympathetic with our villains. And I'm like, no.
I hate that trope has come around. Yeah.
Agreed.
What is wrong with having a villain that is just a villain? Having a complex character that you can still relate to and you grudgingly admire, but they're still the bad guy.
Yeah, you can have a villain with motivation, but they don't have to be you don't have to identify with them at all. That's not how it should be.
Yes, I mean, what can you imagine? I would say one of the greatest cinematic villains that we've ever had was Darth Vader. Now, he is a character that was primarily evil for the most, the time that we saw him, but he's a character that then gets his redemption at the end. And, I love a good redemption story.
I have some stats here from about Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy production. And one of the things that stands out is what they actually built physically and to make that movie be real, that world come alive. And so one of the things that Jackson did was he had 48,000 pieces of armor made, 10,000 arrows, 500 bows, 19,000 costumes in total. That's a world that he built. And this trailer, the teaser they showed us, it kind of just, it's got some plastic armor and it doesn't fit Galadriel at all. And that's it.
It did look very cheap, didn't it? It looked really odd, and a lot of people are talking about how this doesn't look like elven armor. It looks like a human armor, which I absolutely agree. But if you go back to the films, and these were all built by Weta, and Weta at the time was this tiny little company. I've actually visited the place, and it's a shed. There's there's benches and tables lined up either side, and there's a long bench down the middle, and you just have people sitting on stools, or this was a few years ago now, just working on either a piece of armor or putting together one of their miniatures that they use so brilliantly for the films. That some of these miniatures, like the tower, was actually 70 feet tall, but the intricate detail that they put into it and the love and the care is absolutely phenomenal.
I think they called them bigatures, actually.
Bigatures, exactly. They did. Yes. But they are absolutely stunning to see in person. I think the gentleman that played Theoden was talking about how nobody ever saw the inside of his armor, but it's got a horse pattern imprinted on the inside, and him just seeing that just made him feel like a king, because they took it to the next level, this detail. And I think a lot of people, Viggo Mortensen talked about it as well. He carried his sword around with him at all times, and he wanted to know, how would I sharpen my blade, for example. So they added a little whetstone and a little pouch that he could carry it around with on his costume. They really went above and beyond for their actors to get into character.
And that his practice with the sword came in handy when the stunt man who threw the dagger at his face threw the actual dagger at his face, and he deflected that with his sword.
Yes.
Can you imagine?
Wait a minute. Was that Alec Baldwin before he got big?
yeah, that's right.
Oops, did I say that? Sorry.
Oh, Alec, you're in a lot of trouble.
Oh, he really likes to shoot his mouth off, doesn't he? Yep.
Oh.
He's always popping off on set.
Yeah, People stand beside him because you sure as hell wouldn't stand in front of him. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
right. At least he's a straight shooter, though, right?
It's
Oh my
true.
God.
Yeah.
Too
That's
soon?
one guy who's not firing blanks, huh?
Oh my gosh.
I'll stop.
Uh,
Sorry.
Shall we finish this little den of geek goodness before we wrap up and
Yes.
see what else, see what other
My-
gems that we can mine out of this?
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing, I've been staring since you shared this with me, Purple, this comment about Arwen, like all the backlash because Arwen was a woman in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. I'm like, what the hell planet are you from?
Yes, and I remember where the backlash came from. It was the OneRing.net.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Oh my
was.
God.
Yeah, that was their major hang up at the time, but before they switched sides and went over to Amazon. It's one of the strongest, loudest voices in opposition to having Arwen have a more prominent role in the films did actually come from the OneRing.net. They were not happy.
My God.
And I don't mean to be petty. I don't. And it's not like I'm a supermodel because I'm not, unfortunately. But when I watched that guy who was wearing that raggedy ass thrift store quilt thing that someone had turned into a bathrobe on the Amazon premiere trailer. And I'm like, how did this homeless guy mumbling to himself get on the set of Lord of the Rings trailer? And then I just like, of all the things that you could wear to be the goodwill ambassador of a Tolkien fan site, wouldn't you maybe wear something else like the armor of Gondor, or look like a ranger, or even look like Legolas? No, he looked like some crazy dude, like from an insane asylum who's a permanent resident shuffling around in his bunny slippers. Am I being unfair?
No, that's about right.
No.
Or the poor guy who did the whole struggle session alone.
I know.
It was mostly just him getting makeup put on.
It was like Dustin Hoffman was getting ready for a role where he plays like some cannibal serial killer talking to himself. And I'm like, you're not exactly selling Lord of the Rings to me with this dude,
No. At least it wasn't Tootsie.
Yes, nothing says Lord of the Rings more than a hobo. Thank you.
Oh my God. Well, he left us a little troll snack under the bridge.
Oh God.
That was a fail. That was just a fail. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think I'm blocked by them. I have to check. But,
I think we're all blocked by them, and or if we're not, we probably will be by the time September rolls around.
Because
There's
they're
just
so
going to be
inclusive.
nobody. Yes, exactly. Yes, the one thing that they love is obviously differing opinions.
yeah. Oh, the problem is I should have went to that seminar, Gondor in Transition, that they had last year.
I tried to get into that, and I couldn't get into it.
I was on.
Yeah.
They blocked everybody. I was
They
so
did?
stoked to watch that. Yeah.
I was like, But I thought it was inclusive, guys. I thought you wanted people to listen to what you had to say. Oh, okay.
No, inclusiveness means repeat after me. That's what it means.
Yeah.
Clearly, we didn't tick enough boxes. That's why we weren't letting. Yes.
No, and you're a ginger, Purple, so definitely you didn't.
Preemptively cancelled. Thank you for
That's
that.
right. That's right.
Let's see what they say. They also say fan reactions have undoubtedly become more extreme since Jackson's Lord of the Rings films trilogy was released. It was 20 years ago. And they started off aggressive. The positives that can come with fandom: community, connections, creativity. None of those come from Amazon. Don't counteract its negative sides, ignoring the increasingly destructive elements with a kind of toxic positivity amounts to a suspension of critical engagement and an unwillingness to process difficult truths. Are they talking about us or themselves here?
Yeah. Again, the amount of weird intersectional spin on this, it's the kind of mind that needs to start throwing off these platitudes and straw men. It's insane. I'm gonna say it in my way. The reason why fans are air quotes being toxic in yelling is because the punch that we love to drink, that is Tolkien, that fruit punch, or Star Wars or Star Trek, the creatives have unzipped their flies and pissed in it, and we watched them do it. And when they go to ladle us a cup full of what we like, that punch, and we go to drink it, we can smell that it smells like their creative urine. And I don't mean, but there's no other way to say it. And us going, why did you pee in our punch? Yeah. Maybe we're going to be emotional that you've done that. And the problem is not that they've peed in our punch. The problem is we don't like that they've done it.
Yes,
drink my urine, bigot.
Really
exactly, and they still expect you to drink it down and smile.
You bigot. Yeah. Drink that punch, bigot. Yeah,
drink it. You istophobe. Exactly.
I'm not being sensational. There's really no other. I mean, like, I think that's the most calm, rational way to put it. It really is. And you can sit here and we can, string together, 4-syllable words in terms and, be all good little neo-Marxists or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's a book that I love. Stop screwing around with it. It's a character that I love. Stop projecting your weak ass creativity and your political agendas on it. Like, go somewhere else. And we're not the problem.
We're not the problem. No. Having criticism of something is not toxic, but they are absolutely adamant that it is the case. It also goes on to say here, there's a sense of fans in identity being tied up in something make-believe, making a criticism of their favorite stories. A criticism is a criticism of them as people. Well, if you flip that round, yeah. What does that say about people who can only identify with whatever it is that they're watching or reading if they don't see themselves in it? Surely that's the mirror image of what they're talking about here.
Yeah, and there was that influencer video from Amazon where I did a video last night that people loved, where I drew out the fact that you could tell exactly where these super fans, and my air quotes are really big, were using all of the Amazon buzzwords like representation, diversity. Like, it was just all, you could tell that they were. All of this was programmed. And as we saw by Disparew's video, Amazon did this for multiple countries. They did it for the UK and America. They did it for France, Italy, Spain, the same talking points. And it's like, no, that's not why people love Lord of the Rings. It's not. They love Lord of the Rings in Peter Jackson because it's make-believe and fantasy and a silly little story about short people that go to a mountain and throw a ring in a volcano. We love that story, and we don't have to welcome people in who are going to crap all over it.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And it goes back to, again, something that we have sadly lost. It's respect for the law and respect for the source material. And as did I just had to pull up this comment because it did make me laugh. Purple Valkyrie, a true life story, a movie starring Idris Elba.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
That's funny as hell. Thank you for that.
Again, we got to stop giving J.J. Abrams story ideas from the show.
Oh, yeah.
I know. We're giving him gold nuggets here.
Oh my God.
But even here, they bring up the whole idea, and it's been talked about before. They're talking about anti-Semitism. So it says, for example, despite Tolkien's vehement anti-racism, there are issues with his mythology. He's equating dwarves to Jews, including linguistically, was intended positively as a representation of dispossessed people, but he also described their tremendous love of the artifact. Dwarves,
this is like a reach.
Gold. It's not that deep, guys.
This is a reach. I keep saying it. There are animal shelters that would welcome people who are mentally ill to come and comfort animals and to clean out the kennels. Do something positive for society. Stop taking your woke hammer to everything that we love and smashing it to pieces, and then taking like selective parts of it and rebuilding something that's a monstrosity. It's just horrifying.
I agree with that. And I know that the saying has been used way too often, but go outside and touch some grass, please, guys. Get some fresh air. Because clearly you're struggling at this point. Yeah. Let's just see if there's any more little gems that we could dig out of this. I'm going to skip past that bit. So, here's a good one. Lord of the Rings has already been co-opted by the far right. Has anybody got bingo yet?
Oh my god.
I literally WTF. How? I mean, I just don't have words.
It's like when they tell you to go if you go to jail to go punch the biggest guy in the face, and this is what they're doing, except for he was a nice guy.
That's right.
I love it how they're bringing up these comments, but with every comment they're basically disproving themselves. So
Yeah.
it's a huge self-own, this entire article.
Whoever wrote this was probably not alive when the first trilogy came out either. So
I would
appreciate
agree
their
with that.
opinion, But
Yeah, I
go
would
back
agree
to
with
bed.
that.
I
Yeah.
would as well. Yeah. So far we've got racism, we've got sexism, we've got anti-Semitism, we've got
Oh,
the far
one more.
right.
Yes.
Yep.
Bingo.
Yes. Bingo.
Don't forget misogyny. There's also misogyny in
We've
here.
got misogyny. Absolutely. Yep. Let's see what else. Oh, here we go. We've got fascism. There we go.
There we go. All just again, I feel very lucky to have grown up in the 20th century and to have gone to school in the 80s, and to have lived in a world where a lot of the people I went to college with, who are now professors, who I used to get into arguments about this stuff 30 years ago, that were saying this crazy stuff back then, we laughed at them. And even then, there were people that said, well, we're going to push this neo-Marxist stuff and we're going to use the corporations to do it. And I was like laughing. I was like, that's dumb. Yeah. Well, here we are. And that's all I'm going to say.
Here we are. So it's nice to be proved right, but at the same time, I
didn't want to be right.
Kind of wish you didn't, yeah.
I didn't want this to come true.
Look at this. We've even got a Gamergate reference.
Wow, that's a bingo. Bingo, I got it. Bingo
that's
card.
Bingo. That's it, we're done. So what did they say? Let's have a look. Given its previous connections with fascism, see above, the response to Peter Jackson's films, it's sadly not surprising to see Lord of the Rings fandom engaging in cultural war campaigns. Since at least 2014 and Gamergate, there has been momentum that has built through different fandoms. There was an overlap between Gamergate and the Sad/Rabbit Puppies voting campaign at the Hugo Awards in 2015 and 2016. Jesus.
I don't even know what the hell they're talking about. Like,
I
it's just a certain point.
I hope they stretched before they did this reach.
I think that what they did for this article was they found a bunch of dumb articles and they clicked randomize.
Yeah, they did.
We've got Ghostbusters 2016 as well.
Yeah, there you go. That's it.
Jesus.
And the Star Wars trilogy from Disney. Yes, of course we do. And they're also talking about Kelly Marie Tran. Bless her.
Jesus. I mean, they make up these lies. They misrepresent. They build a straw man. Then that straw man becomes permanent in the lexicon of oppression that they keep trotting out to build this case. And I've said it before, but they need to manufacture these idiotic, juvenile, asinine straw man arguments and then enshrine them, because there's a true lack of actual misogyny, right-wing, anti this stuff. There's a true lack of all of this bigotry and ism and phobia that they keep saying is there. So they have to make crap like this up.
Yeah, people are so desperate to be a victim nowadays. It's bizarre. Whereas before, what people strive for, you wanted to be the best person you could be. You wanted to be a productive member of society. You wanted to, either be successful with your family or with your profession or, whatever community you're a part of or whatever fandom you're a part of. But now it's all about, how can I be the victim? How does this affect me personally?
Yeah, that's intersectionalism. I mean, intersectionalism is creating an XY graph where you can find yourself on that oppression meter. And the more oppressed, I'm not kidding, the more oppressed that you can, the more disadvantaged and disenfranchised and oppressed you are, the more clout you have in intersectionalism. And really what it is promoting is, in my opinion, is the least capable and the most unreliable and the most unproven are somehow the most celebrated, which is kind of insane to me, you know?
Yes, it's mediocrity is celebrated and lifted up as though it was something to strive for, whereas in the past, as we were saying, you want to be the best person or the best version of yourself that you could be. Now you don't.
Hold on, Purple. Striving is white supremacy.
Right? It is, yeah. I absolutely. I forgot that. That's all right. But I did just want to cover this last little bit that they talk about, because there are some brilliant lines in this. So
I can't wait for the big finish on this. I tell you that.
So, of course, they had to end on a high and talk about Star Wars trilogy. So the recent Star Wars trilogy also has similar campaigns waged against it. The Force Awakens was criticised for Rey, the new lead, being a Mary Sue. Yeah, she was. So
yeah, she was.
Which resulted in a response suggesting double standards for female and male leads.
Okay. There's a double standard, but it's not what they think it is.
Yeah, there's a bigger difference between Rey Skywalker and Luke Skywalker, and has nothing to do what was dangling between anybody's legs. It has to do with how the character was developed, and that Luke Skywalker had loss, had to follow the hero's journey, and Rey just went, pressed a button and magically could fly the Millennium Falcon with no training.
Yes, exactly. And obviously being able to fight with a staff is exactly the same thing as being able to fight with a lightsaber. There's no difference whatsoever. Yes.
I know. That's why they should give Robin Hood and his merry men lightsabers in the next Robin Hood movie, because they already know with a quarterstaff how to use that weapon. You're right.
Let's see. They also said that Kelly Marie Tran was also abused on social media. No, she was not. She was actually abused by the studio. It wasn't fans that drove her off social media for simply being in a film after playing Rose in The Last Jedi. John Boyega received...
When they say film, they mean potato sack. That's what
exactly. And she is beautiful. She is so pretty.
She is.
Yeah.
God. I can't believe what they did, but I would argue that John Boyega had probably the worst luck with these films. And they say John Boyega received racist abuse and death threats ever since his role as Finn was announced.
Probably from Disney, from what he said about the movie. But I don't know about from fans.
What happened to you on the posters, John?
Yes, that was a printing error. That was an error. It was the wrong JPEG we put in the poster. Sorry, Johnny.
It's a stormtroopers can adjust their accuracy of shooting their suits to suit the demands of the scene, but they can't be black. Apparently, nobody cared that he was black. We wanted more backstory of him. We wanted to know, what it was like. We wanted to find out what it was like to be a stormtrooper. We wanted him to be the hero, and I think most people actually wanted him to become a Jedi, from what I remember.
I did. Yeah, I bought that action figure. I bought his action figure before the movie came out, going, this is going to be the next a Jedi. This, I could see it, and I was like, okay, is it you got the diversity thing? I don't care. Like, I don't care. I mean, we had Mace Windu. Nobody cared about Mace Windu, and he's one of the greatest Jedis, and one of the best things about the prequels out there. Why people didn't like the Force Awakens, and also, of course, the Abomination that's the Last Jedi, had nothing to do with the races of the characters. It had to do with the characters as they were created. That's the problem, and these people aren't separating the differences between that. We hated it not because of the casting. They probably would have been great. We hated it because you took people and didn't make them believable characters, and you massacred Star Wars.
And you made him
Rian
a janitor.
Johnson, I'm talking to you. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And he was probably the one character that I was most interested in, because I thought, this is going to be a fantastic story. I want to know his journey. I don't particularly care about Rey, but maybe Finn's got an interesting story. But no, as Jack's pointed out, they made him into the janitor and a joke.
Yeah. He was the Star Wars minstrel.
He's a meme now. Ray! That's it. He's a meme.
Yes, he just runs around and shouts and oh god. Oh, we love you, John Boyega. We do. We
Yeah.
still believe in you. Just to say a big thank you again to the Thad That Shouldn't Be. Thank you so much for your support today. I really really appreciate it. He says neo-Marxism is a marketing term those sociopaths created to obfuscate the fact that all of the big genocides of the 20th century were done by socialists.
Fair. And I know this isn't the show to talk about that, but one of the things that neo-Marxism seeks to do is to erode the culture and the history and the entertainment of a country that it comes into. And so arguably one could say that that same path is being followed now. No, stop talking.
No, I absolutely agree. I think that's definitely something that we're probably going to have to talk about at some point. So I think it is worth talking about. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. You know, we as content creators on YouTube, we generally have to be quite careful with what we say for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, you know, this isn't the YouTube that we had 10 years ago. But yeah, it's a shame that people get kind of muzzled into what we can and cannot talk about. So thank you for that, Mama Susan.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh my gosh. Guys, before we wrap up, and let me say before we do, a huge thank you for being my co-host today. I think this was a fantastic show. I have had an absolute brilliant time getting to chat with you. First of all, would you guys be kind enough to come back again sometime? Because I would love to have you back.
I would be honored. Purple, it is so much fun to work with you. Thank you for the invite this morning.
Well, thank you.
Anytime, Purple. I'm here for you.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that. A huge thank you to everybody in the chat as well. You guys were absolutely on fire today. We had some brilliant comments. I couldn't grab all of them, but they were so good. But before we wrap up, guys, what have you got coming up?
Zaxx, you go first. You got all kinds of things going.
Not really, but I'm actually on a show tonight on Baron Norman Tag. He's having me on as his guest at 9 p.m. Central, so I'm going to be there tonight.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'm putting out as much content as I can. I'm trying to find sort of my pocket for what kind of things I want to produce, and so my YouTube channel is a bit random, but yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Punkwaddle, who is our lone mod on our Tuesday show. And that guy's doing God's work. So thank you, Punkwaddle.
Yes.
And he loves purple.
It's true.
Punkwaddle is amazing. And guys, I think Zaxx has just smashed through. Was it you've just hit another milestone, if I remember correctly?
Yeah, I hit 200 subs yesterday. So
nice.
That was awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
so guys, big thank you to Brandon for all his hard work today. If you're not subscribed to Zaxx, please do, because he has a fantastic channel. Well worth listening to. He does some brilliant takes. I love to watch. So please subscribe if you're not already. Salty Texas C, what about you?
Yes, ma'am. Well, first of all, thank you for the invite. I loved this conversation. The time just flew by. I mean, like, I can't believe we've been talking for an hour and a half and I could go, another hour. So thank you for the invite. A big thank you to Zaxx. Zaxx is such an important part of what I do on my live show. He is my partner, my heterosexual life partner, and I love what he does. I see a lot of the people in the chat were also in my live stream last night. Hail to you. I do live streams every Tuesday at 7:15. I have great people on, just like Purple. And we're going to be doing it again next Tuesday. I'm having Snow Dub on. And if you don't know what he does great puppet work as well as cool observations on pulp culture. We'll probably roll somebody else into that show too. But I also put videos out talking about the culture war. I'm going to be putting out a Batman video probably today because that is coming up on March 4th. But no, just thank you so much for the invite, Purple, and thank you to the chat for all your awesome comments.
Absolutely. And again, guys, big thank you. Brandon's been working very hard today, putting the links out. Links are also in the description as well. So please do subscribe to these awesome gentlemen. I had a fantastic time joining them again and the other week, and I would love to do so again in the future. it's just a really fun conversation that we kind of get into.
Absolutely. This is a blast.
This has been so much fun, and sub to Brandon as well. He's got a great channel too.
He does. We've got so many up and coming channels. I love to watch, and I watch as many people as I can. Even if I don't get to watch you live and I'm not in the chat, I promise, guys, I am there watching and leaving a like. So, guys, huge thank you, and keep doing all this hard work, because we need as many voices as possible saying no to the cultural vandals.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, guys, let me say a huge thank you once more to my co-host, a massive thank you to everybody in the chat, to everybody who sent super chats, who sent super stickers, who sent member messages. Thank you. I really appreciate it. We had a little bit of a break, but we are back. I will be back on Friday, and I'm going to be joined by Zavropium. We're going to be talking computer games, and then we'll be back again on Monday, and I think I'm going to be joined by that 70s rock fan, and we are going to be talking Elvis. So really looking forward to that as well. We're going to talk a little bit about the king himself, and I think about the new Baz Luhrmann film that's due to come out, because I really like the trailer for that.
It looks amazing.
It does.
Amazing.
It does. So, guys, let me say a very warm thank you, and have a fantastic Wednesday. And no doubt we will see each other on YouTube very soon. So take care, everybody, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Cheers.
Later.